Hello, this is an EG replay review, and I am Greg, EG.IdrA Fields, and we'll be watching a match of me versus Liquid Jinro from MLG Columbus today. Let's go into the game. Here we see me as the red Zerg at the top right, and Jinro as the blue Terran at the bottom left, and this is MLG Antiga Shipyard, so it is forced cross positions, so we both know that we are cross map, and this is also not the version with the gold bases. Some MLG versions have the gold minerals here. This one does not. That's very fortunate for me, as if Terran does manage to secure this base and has gold mineral income, it's a very difficult situation for the Zerg. However, the blue minerals obviously not nearly as valuable. And this game will kind of be a study and my take on the Ling Infestor style that has become very popular. A lot of Zergs still mix in roaches, and I do as well at times. That can be very good as well. However, this is kind of a straight Ling Infestor style, which I feel is better if you can get away with it, as it saves much more gas for your hive tech army, which is of utmost importance. So generally, I think going into a game, playing ground unit style, playing Infestor-based style, your goal should be to stay on Ling Infestor, and you only mix in roaches if it is deemed necessary, if they have a very heavy Hellion count, or if they're being super aggressive off 2 base, and you just need more power in your army, or you need something that's more efficient versus their unit composition. In that case, it's okay to go Roach Ling Infestor. However, here, Jinro's not going to put a ton of pressure on me. He's not going to do any kind of special counter build, so I'm just going to play Ling Infestor. And it's kind of just a very basic execution of the style, so I felt this was a good game to learn from. And we see that I'm going a Speedling opening. This is not the most popular version. A lot of people like to delay the gas, get extra queens, just get that massive mineral income early on. I like having Speedlings, as it makes it much easier to deal with any potential Hellion aggression. Also gives you the opportunity to push out and take this base immediately in some circumstances for some builds. So it is just a matter of preference, economy versus Speedlings, and both styles are absolutely acceptable. It just depends on what you prefer to use. I personally like the map control the Speedlings give you. However, the additional mineral income from the no-gas style is also very good, particularly on maps with smaller chokes. Here, one spine initially doesn't completely cover the choke, so Hellions can be a little bit more annoying. Whereas on a map like Cloud Kingdom, where the initial spine crawler can cover the entire choke, then the gasless openings are even better. Here we can see Jinro opening completely standard, 1 rack CC into Reactor Hellions, and then a very fast third command center. It may seem greedy. It feels kind of greedy for a Terran to get 3 orbitals that quickly. However, this is pretty much safe versus any build. As long as you scout a Roach Baneling bus coming in time, you can hold just about anything with this. We see the Slayer's Terrans do it almost every time. We see Marine King do a lot of fast 3 orbitals. This is just kind of the standard right now. So you're expecting to play against a Terran with that kind of income that early on, and you're actually at an advantage if they don't get it that quickly. We can see him adding extra barracks, engineering bay, double engineering bay really quickly. Again, that seems greedy, but Terran is just so efficient defensively early on, particularly when they're going really fast siege tanks, as Jinro is doing here, that it's actually pretty easy to defend, even if you do a pretty dedicated aggressive build like a Roach Baneling all-in. So given the knowledge that I just don't feel that Zerg all-ins are particularly effective even versus greedy Terran builds, I'm just going to build up a ton of drones myself, be greedy myself. That is the other option to counter greedy builds. You can match it by being just as greedy as them, if not more so. You don't necessarily have to attack them to deal with that really fast third orbital and their really fast double command center and their really fast tech. Double engineering bay, pardon me. You can see, given my drone count, I know I have a ton of mineral income. I also know that Zerglings, they're very cheap units. They're very larvae inefficient. So I'm getting that very fast third hatchery in order to have the production necessary to keep up with my economy while producing only Zerglings and drones. Also, another very important point of this is the double upgrades early on, in fact, before the lair. It's sometimes okay to get lair after Carapace, but generally you just want to start your double upgrades as early as possible. Zerglings versus Marines obviously both have very high rate of fire, very low damage, so every upgrade is just multiplied, or is just infinitely more effective because of the nature of the units. So in Zergling versus Marine battles, the side with the higher upgrades almost always wins. It's just incredibly efficient and very important in this style. Also, given that you're headed up towards Ultralists or Broodlords, both benefit from the melee and the Carapace attacks. 3/3 Broodlings are surprisingly strong coming out of Broodlords, and obviously 5 armor Ultralists just kind of don't die to anything. So not only are those very efficient in the mid-games Zergling-based battles, but they also benefit you greatly if you get up to Hive Tech and have 3/3 very early on in the game. Here we can see some of the very important points of this style. Zergling Infestor, you don't have that flock of Mutalisks running around to take out medevacs as you do with the Mutalist-based style. That makes static defense much more important. Generally, I'll put down at least 2 Spine Crawlers and eventually a Spore Crawler at every base, just because it's worthwhile, and you're not going to be able to kill off those medevacs as easily as you can with other styles. So it's much more difficult to play a reactive game against drop-based styles. Also, you generally have a ton of money and a ton of larvae with this style because your army can be so incredibly efficient. As long as you have creep sped, Ling Infestor is very, very efficient in any battle. Therefore, you can afford a few extra drones, and you can afford the minerals to put them down and turn them into spines and spores. As the main portion of your army, the Infestors, as well as the very fast tech path, is gas heavy, so you can afford to spend the extra minerals. Here we can see General not really doing anything. I'll just kind of sit back, building up, getting those upgrades going, getting that tank count going before he's prepared to come out and take the orbital. This is a really nice little tactic, both dropping the Overlord creep and burrowing the Zergling, because initially they'll just go ahead and take out the Overlord, or attempt to, as in this situation is not able to attempt to, and then they'll wait for the creep to clear, and then they'll try and land it, and then they'll also have to scan to kill off the Zergling. It's just like adding layers of annoyance for the Terran. And here we can see I'll be heading up towards Hive very soon. 12-minute Hive is quick, but it's pretty much the standard with Ling Infestor if you're not forced to go roaches and if nothing else happens early on in the game. You do have to get up to that Hive Tech army very fast. If you get up to max armies, Zerg vs. Terran with Ling Infestor, Terran should destroy you if their composition is correct. Tanks just, they kind of rip through Zerglings at that point. Marines, obviously, Marines are ranged units, so they stack much better than Zerglings once you start to get into high numbers. So unless you have very efficient fungals or they make too many Marauders for some reason, max army without Hive Tech does not work out so well for the Zerg. And here, as I was saying, even putting down a second Spore Crawler just to be really, really safe first drops. Also going in with Zerglings. With this style, Zerglings are very nearly expendable, especially in small groups like that. For the same reason that you can afford to put down these spines and spores at every base, you just have a ton of minerals, and Zerglings don't really cost that much. So going in there and losing 12 Zerglings to kill that tank was a great trade for me, because I can reproduce those Zerglings in an instant, and the fact 12 Zerglings in your army actually just isn't that much of a difference. It doesn't do a ton of damage. It doesn't make you that much more powerful, whereas one more tank is a very big deal for the Terran. And here you can see double Spire coming down. I feel very confident in this game. I feel I have very good map control. I have a good economy compared to him. I have a lot of Infestors up early, building a ton of mana. Therefore, I'm putting down the double Spire. Double Spire is something you should always aim for when you are headed towards Broodlords, as those upgrades are just incredibly important. And we will see. I'll get a Greater Spire immediately, and then probably start my Carapace upgrade with the second Spire. Carapace is slightly more important than attack versus Terran, as Thors and Vikings, even Marines, high rate of fire and volley-based attacks, so they take additional damage reduction from the Carapace upgrade. So that's very, very important versus Terran, more so than it is versus Protoss. And then here we can see in it immediately the static defense going up, getting the gases up as well. We can see my mineral income already very good, and honestly just not able to use all the minerals I have. The gas is much more important. Another big thing here is Overlord spread. That's something a lot of good Terrans actually, or a lot of good Zergs actually neglect for no particular reason, and I myself don't have great Overlord spread down here on the bottom of the map. But obviously playing against drops is much easier when you know that the drops are coming. So it's really, really good to have Overlords out here. Even if they have a Viking out sniping the Overlords, you should just go ahead and replace them. It's more of a hassle for the Terran to go out and kill them than it is for you to actually replace them. And here, Zergling counter, great with this style. Those Zerglings, again, essentially expendable, and they can be such a huge hassle for the Terran. Here, he just has nothing here, so he loses income at that base. He just can't mine from there for a while until he comes back and secures it. And this is the best case scenario. He actually pulled back his entire army to defend that, so that's absolutely great for me. And here, Infestors, you just force him to siege his way all the way across the map. That was a little sloppy by me. I lost one Infestor there. You want to be really, really careful with those. However, you do want to make it as painful for Terran to cross the map as possible. You want him to sit here and siege up and have to leapfrog his tanks every time he wants to move forward. Otherwise, he'll just eat a gigantic fungal on all of his Marines. And here we can see that's buying me time for my Broodlords. You gotta be careful with the Zerglings. It's okay to run in and pick off small groups of Marines, but once the tanks get in range, you need to run back. Tank fire obviously just does way too much damage to those packs of Zerglings. Now my Broodlords are out. I'm gonna be able to force him back. Broodlords are absolutely great versus this kind of army. If he doesn't have Vikings, it's just not too much you can do versus the Broodlords. They take advantage of the siege tanks. They turn them against them. The tank splash damage kills all of his Marines. And you saw that as soon as he unsieged, I ran forward with my circling Infestor to try and catch his army, to try and prevent him from getting away. And when he's not sieged, Fungal is just absolutely king for said army. He can't spread his Marines well enough to not be destroyed by the Fungal. So as soon as you force an unsiege, you want to run in and do as much damage as possible. Just make sure that you do not waste the Infestors. And here, very smartly by him, he's actually setting up a gigantic flank, waiting for me to move too far forward so that he can run in and just kind of be too spread out for my broodlords and my Infestors to be as cost efficient as they normally are. So it's very important for me to be careful, to pull back, to stay near this ramp where I can just retreat and force him into like a little bottleneck where I can fungal him very well if he decides to charge forward. However, he started to pick off my broodlord count. I know it's becoming more and more dangerous to sit here as he could just rush forward and overwhelm me. So I'm going to pull back, get more units up. I have these additional broodlords back here. And see, I'm continuing to upgrade. A little bit of a mistake. Should have that Carapace upgrade going immediately. However, I am lacking in gas. And it's more important to have units until I kill off this army, as it can be a little bit dangerous. If Terran breaks you once, it can be a slippery slope kind of situation where you can't actually chip down their army if you lose all of your broodlords and Infestors softly. So it's very important to focus on that, but there goes the second Carapace upgrade. And here, again, a couple of Corruptors out to help deal with the Vikings, just pushing him back. Continuing to establish an economy, very important. Also, again, the static defense. You see a ton of spine crawlers go down immediately. Drops are one of the best ways for Terran to deal with this situation, as your army is not mobile at all. I can't run this down to deal with a drop. So having those spine crawlers up is of utmost importance right away. Otherwise, a good Terran will just have a medevac on this immediately, and he'll be able to kill it, and there won't be anything you can really do about it. So getting those spine crawlers down is your first priority when you're taking another base. And it is important to continue to secure bases because obviously the Terran is continuing to secure bases, and he can be more efficient than me in some fights. He can whittle me down. So it is important for me to continue, particularly to get gas income. We see that I do not have a big gas bank. If I lose all these broodlords somehow, I'm not going to be able to replace them. So that's a very dangerous situation to be in. It's very important to keep expanding. And it's also very difficult for Terran to actually run around and kill bases with their army at this point. If this army goes too far away, I can just run in and kill his main base. We see there's nothing really there. So he is going to have to be dependent on drops, and like I said, the static defense can pretty much nullify drops. So if you manage to get a base up and get the static defense there in order to prevent drops, that base is pretty much safe. There's not a whole lot he can do about it unless he actually wins a big army versus army battle. And here, a really good position for me. His tanks don't cover the rest of his army, and the rest of his army comes up here to fight the broodlords, and my circlings come in and take out the tanks. Just a good example of how to split up a Terran army and really utilize your strengths. You want your Infestors and your broodlords engaging the Marines, and then you want your circlings engaging the tanks or the Thors. And it's really important to segment a Terran army like that. If they keep everything together and use it in concert with each other, it's super efficient. However, if you can get good matchups for yourself in terms of unit versus unit, you can just absolutely destroy it. And there I barely lost any broodlords or Infestors. And like I said, the circlings are pretty expendable. So that was an absolutely great engagement for me. I have a massive economy up. I have all my upgrades coming. My 3-3 melee upgrades are actually really late. I delayed those because I was so gas-starved, and his timing attack was coming out before broodlords were on the way. So I was a little bit worried about that. I felt the need to get those broodlords right away. But now that I've secured the map, I have a massive income. I can afford to get those. And here it comes in the killing blow. He's just lost too much of his army. He doesn't have enough of a bank to replace it. He doesn't have any real income left. He has this base, but obviously it's not mining yet, and he GG's. That was an EG replay review. If you enjoyed this content, please go to evilgeniuses.net and check out a bunch of other replays, reviews, and all of our other content. Thank you for watching.